The gaming industry has become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, with some game launches bigger and more profitable than some of the biggest and brightest blockbuster movies.
Yep, the gaming industry is fucking huge now. It's pretty cool to see. But you know how in the movie industry we have a whole bunch of really crap summer movies, and not even just summer movies anymore, just a whole bunch of really crap movies in general that sell themselves on spectacle and not actually being good. They're just kind of riding off the success of the industry as a whole. That's starting to kind of cross over into AAA gaming, unfortunately.
There are over 500 million gamers on mainstream console and PC logging in countless hours in their favorite games. If you're a video game developer or publisher, bringing these interactive blockbusters to the gamers' homes is a risky business venture that hinges on two major factors, and that is all about to change.
Wait, what are the two factors? I can't see the change if you don't tell me.
This is Colt Eastwood. I'm in the middle of two critically panned games and another on deck to purchase, and the industry professionals are telling me that I'm not supposed to like them.
No, they're not telling you you're not supposed to like them. They're just telling you that they're not really good games. Oh, and by the way, the two games he's talking about here are Crackdown 3 and Far Cry New Dawn. Because he doesn't actually say which games he's talking about for like another minute.
Or spend my hard-earned money on them.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea not to spend your hard-earned money on a game that's probably not going to be that satisfying for you, especially given how expensive games are nowadays. That's just critics doing their job. It is their job to assess the objective value of video games and try to tell you what you should or shouldn't do with your money. They're not trying to dictate what you do with it. Obviously, people are going to play bad games or poorly reviewed games, and that's their own prerogative. You can do what you want with your money. It's just them telling you about the game. And if a game's not very good, they're going to tell you. There's no reason to be so fucking defensive about people handing you bad reviews.
We're going to talk about what those two factors are and how they almost outright discourage us to buy or play these games.
Yes, a bad review is to discourage people from encouraging bad games from coming out. Where's the problem with this?
If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell to join the channel and the discussion we have here weekly.
Nah.
Hit the like button if you're interested in this topic, and let's get right into it. I recently got an insight into the games review industry by receiving a review code for Crackdown 3 several days before the game released to the rest of the public. I had the pleasure of playing the game on my own merits without any outside influences, no review scores, no sales figures or opinions from peers or detractors.
No outside factors? Are you sure? No outside factors. You posted your review of Crackdown 3 on February 14th, which was the day before the game officially launched. And also keep in mind that Crackdown 3 was playable to Xbox Game Pass, or there was something on Xbox where you could play the game a week early. And reviews had been coming out for like 2 weeks, and early impressions had been coming out for weeks before the game launched. My point here is you say that you had an unbiased and uninfluenced playthrough of Crackdown 3 for your review, but what I'm saying is that the timing of all of this doesn't add up. Heck, the title of your Crackdown 3 review is it really a bad game? Which means there were reviews out. Why would you say that if there were no reviews out? We're only a minute and a half into this video and I'm already starting to smell Fanboy.
If you haven't, I'd suggest watching my review of Crackdown 3.
You shouldn't do that. It's not very good.
I gave the game a decently high score, and mostly because of my enjoyment and quantified fun that pushed that score up about 5 points out of 100.
Wait, so what was your score? Did you already forget? What was the score?
The industry critics as a whole have reviewed recent games unfavorably. Crackdown sits at a 60 out of 100.
Okay, so what's unfair about that?
When it should be really closer to a 70. Far Cry New Dawn, which is a trimmed down Far Cry 5 with creative additions for 3/4 of the cost, is in the 70s.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Anthem, one of the year's most anticipated games, is already looking like it'll be in the 60s or low 70s out of 100.
Yes, AAA games have been disappointing this year. Also, I like how you're conveniently leaving out the user scores for these games and you're only talking about the critic scores. Because it would kind of hurt your narrative if you actually showed that the users were even more brutal to these games. AAA gaming is disappointing this year so far. I fail to see what's unfair about that. If anything, critics have been unfairly positive to AAA games this year.
Regardless of Metacritic, which is powerfully influential, consumers are trying their best to forego a Metacritic consensus and follow the advice of friends and trusted content creators' opinions. Metacritic's aggregate score paints a seemingly objective picture of the quality and value of games, with dozens, if not 50 plus, professional sites combining their subjective opinion of a game.
Well, yes, subjective opinions are one thing, but objective opinions are another. Well, there's no such thing as an objective opinion. An objective opinion is just a fact. But yes, reviewers will have opinions, but they'll also have professional insights. They'll also have professional objective things. Let's go through the 3 games you mentioned that you apparently are just so hurt by the low scores for, when, like I said, critics were actually a lot nicer to all 3 of these games than the actual gaming public was. Crackdown 3, currently sitting with a 60 out of 100 critic score and a 4.3 out of 10 user score. Common criticisms include the downgraded visuals, the just overall downgraded everything from the early promotional trailers, the uninteresting story, repetitive gameplay, the very small and not very interesting sandbox, and also the fact that it's not really much better than Crackdown 1. Far Cry New Dawn, currently sitting with a 75 out of 100 critic score, but a 3.2 out of 10 user score. Common criticisms are the fact that it's basically just Far Cry 5 again, but with less stuff to do, a less interesting story, and it's also $40. No thank you. And then, of course, Anthem. 65 out of 100 critic score, 3.9 out of 10 user score. I don't think I even need to get into why this game is getting so bashed. But also notice that at no point in any of these reviews do people say you're not allowed to like them or you're not allowed to have fun with them. If you weren't allowed to have fun with these games, they would all be at 0 out of 10 user score. Like, you understand this, right? You understand that a review is not a law. You are absolutely allowed to like games that aren't reviewed well, and you're absolutely allowed to like fucking any game you want. The fact that you're taking such an issue with AAA games being reviewed poorly is odd to me. You're a gaming channel. You're a gaming critic. You should, if anything, be on AAA gaming's case for not being very good this year so far. For going through the motions, because that's obviously what's happening here. AAA gaming, like I said at the beginning of the video, is starting to get into that situation where Hollywood has been in for a while, where they're just kind of throwing things at us without any real creativity or artistry involved. They're kind of just putting together a bunch of things they know people like and throwing them at us for $60 plus DLC. It's getting kind of depressing, honestly. Why do you think so many people are turning to indie games and AA games?
These Metacritic review scores that bring a majority vote to the top of the glass hinges the compensation that talent in the game studios can earn.
I think for the most part, people don't really blame developers for poor games, for poor AAA games at least. I think for the most part, everyone will blame a poor AAA game on the publishers. Yes, obviously developers aren't completely free of blame, but when you look into the situations that they're in and the bars that they have to be locked behind, most logical people won't blame developers for a poor AAA game, or at least not entirely blame developers. The publishers are usually a big part of the problem.
Regardless of such an abysmal review aggregate for Crackdown 3 on the Xbox One,
was it really reviewed abysmally though? 60 out of 100? Is that really abysmal? It's definitely more optimistic than the user score, which you're, again, conveniently not mentioning.
And regardless of releasing right next to Metro Exodus, Jump Force, and Far Cry New Dawn,
yes, I'm sure Crackdown's problems would have been completely solved if it wasn't released next to 3 other games that people didn't really care all that much about anyways, aside from Metro. Just keep on blaming everything except the game itself. That's That's a really healthy attitude to have that will definitely help AAA gaming in the long run. Thanks. Appreciate it, bud.
Crackdown 3 was the most played on the Xbox, even being celebrated as the most played new full-price game on the Xbox One.
And it was also free to everyone who had Xbox Game Pass. So, yeah, no shit. This is why you shouldn't just take headlines at face value and then pick and choose the things you want to see. Crackdown 3 was the most played Xbox game at launch, not because of the hype or the love around it. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of that. The game was free to everyone who had Xbox Game Pass from day one. Launch day, the game was free to Game Pass. Yeah, no shit a lot of people were playing it. And no shit it passed other games on the Xbox One. Notice how that article you showed, it said it was the most played on the Xbox One. Specifically just the Xbox One, where it was free.
The full price designation to separate the massively popular free-to-play Fortnite and the brand new Apex Legends.
Yeah, the game was free, actually, but you know. Also, side note, what the fuck is that loadout?
Here's where Microsoft has poised their first-party titles to thrive and succeed, even if they launch in the blast zone of games.
You're literally showing an ad for Game Pass, but completely glossing over the fact that that's why Crackdown did so well on the Xbox. Crackdown was the most played, not the best selling. There is a huge difference. And Microsoft is definitely feeling the blunt force of that difference right now.
Xbox Game Pass.
There it is.
Makes a full-price game like Crackdown 3 more accessible for frugal gamers, withholding $60 for another game like Anthem. Microsoft doesn't care if you buy Crackdown 3 outright, digitally or physically full-priced.
What do you mean they don't care if you buy it digitally or on are you kidding me? Of course they care. And as pro-consumer as the Xbox Game Pass is, I'm a huge supporter of that. I think that's great. I think it's a great thing that Microsoft is doing with Game Pass, but Microsoft has kind of been so pro-consumer that they've backed themselves into a wall, honestly. This is another side note, but just I don't know where this is all gonna go, you know? Game Pass, all their games are free to people who use this subscription that's really cheap. And then also all their exclusives are on the PC now too, so I don't know, sometimes I feel like Microsoft is backing themselves into a corner in terms of where the Xbox is supposed to sit in the industry.
Or if you decide to play it within Xbox Game Pass. For $10 a month right now, you get almost 200 Xbox 360 and Xbox One games with unlimited download and installed playtime.
Okay, so what does this have to do with the title of the video? Reviews and sales numbers are meaningless now. Metacritic Open Critic Reviews, Cold Eastwood 4K 60. We went from a defense of poorly received games to literally an advertisement for Xbox Game Pass. Oh, and also, if the game did well through Game Pass, that doesn't mean the game was a success. You need to get this through your head. The game did well on a cheap subscription service. It did not do well for sales. According to GamesIndustry.biz, Crackdown 3 only sold 10% of Crackdown 2. Crackdown 2. It sold 10%. It wasn't even in the top 10 of the week that it launched. Now, granted, I know that only counts physical copies and the industry is different now and that's just in the UK, but that says something, man. 10% of Crackdown 2's physical sales? I know the market for physical sales is smaller now, but not that small. And if you go to the most played games on the Xbox One right now, Crackdown 3 is nowhere to be found. Like, nowhere. But yeah, tell me more about how great Xbox Game Pass boosted this game and how great its sales were. Jesus. I mean, do you do any research at all?
Those who decided to give Crackdown 3 a try are finding that they love the game. The general consensus among players spending 10 to 30 hours on Crackdown 3 is that the game is not a 6, but more like an 8.
Really? Is that the general consensus among players? That's the general consensus, that the game is an 8 out of 10? According to who? Who said that? You're not listening to any sources, because I'm looking at the sources, being Metacritic and Twitter. People fucking hate this game generally. The general consensus is that it sucks. The general consensus is that the game is a disappointment. But again, there's a huge difference between a game being bad and a game being fun. You can have fun with this game, even if it's bad.
Crackdown 3 seems to have lost 10 points out of 100 just for its troubled development. But we're not here to damage control what happened to Crackdown.
Are you sure that's not what you're here to do? Because that's what it sounds like. So far, all I'm hearing is damage control.
There is a second factor that misrepresents the gaming industry and the success of games.
The misrepresentation of games, perhaps?
And it's sales. Sales are often hoisted and waved by the loudest of fanboys when Metacritic or reviews is dismissed as a viable measurement of the quality of a game.
Kind of like what you're doing right now, right?
Sure, some of the most popular and high quality and most enjoyable games have incredible sales figures attached to them.
Yeah, because if a game is good and everyone's telling other people that the game is good and it should be played, then people are going to go buy it.
But free-to-play titles like Fortnite and Apex Legends have broken that measuring stick.
No, they haven't broken the measuring stick of sales because Fortnite and Apex are always bragging about registered players and peak player counts. It's a completely different thing. They're free-to-play games. Yeah, sales don't matter to a free-to-play game.
Some of the world's most popular games in the world are free like Roblox, Dota 2, and League of Legends, or just $20 like Minecraft. Sales matter to a point, but sales should not be a point of matter for fanboys to argue that their favorite game is better than someone else's.
Yeah, nobody does that. Nobody says a game is better than another game because of sales. Destiny 1 sold tremendously. It's one of the most expensive games ever, and it made its money back in the first week. And that game was horrible. And I'm talking about vanilla Destiny before you get mad at me. I know the game got better. I know the game got updated. Vanilla Destiny was garbage. And that game sold tremendously. Call of Duty World War II. Broken at launch. Not a very good game. Yes, I know it got fixed. The game was garbage at launch for a long time, too. And yet it was still one of the biggest media launches ever. Nobody is going to say a game is good just because of sales. Some of my favorite games of all time had very poor sales.
Unless you have your investment portfolio weighed heavily in EA, Microsoft, or Sony, sales only matter if a game performs so poorly that it doesn't justify a sequel.
Okay, you know how you were just completely dismissing negative reviews of Far Cry New Dawn? Can we watch that little gameplay clip back and just keep an eye on this enemy you're, air quotes, fighting?
Sales only matter if a game performs so poorly that it doesn't justify a sequel. Sales only matter if a game performs so poorly that it doesn't justify a sequel.
Sales only matter if a game performs so poorly that it doesn't justify a sequel.
How the fuck is this a AAA game? The fact that AAA games are so fucking easy now is so annoying. What do they take us for nowadays?
With the first-party games included day and date on Xbox Game Pass, Microsoft has removed the consumer's concern for sales.
The consumer should never be concerned about sales. Sales don't affect us. We're concerned about how good the game is.
This has been a hard thing for fans to shake.
Is it? I've literally never thought of this or heard anyone talking about it until just now. I guess I shook it really easily.
Since a game like Gears 5 can be dismissed as being popular, since it can be played by anyone for just $10 on Game Pass.
And there's another thing I've literally never heard anyone say.
Here's where the disconnect is created. Microsoft has removed the reliance on sales figures with their hardware and their software, as long as you are buying the game or buying a residual subscription for Xbox Game Pass.
Okay, so they don't care about sales, but they do care about sales. Cool.
Don't worry about if Microsoft is not making a profit on massive games like Gears 5 or Halo Infinite.
If they're, oh my god, you are so dumb. If they're not making a profit off games, why would they keep making games? If it's not, what you're describing isn't a substantial business model, and Microsoft's not dumb. Where do you think all the microtransactions came from? Are they just popping out, oh, where'd the microtransactions come from? No, that's why I think Game Pass could actually be harmful to Microsoft's exclusives. Because if the games are accessible by anyone, where are they going to make the money back? Oh yeah, microtransactions. The things that fucking infest Halo 5 and Gears 4. And Forza. I'm all for a more pro-consumer model for games, and that's why I'm totally supportive of Game Pass. But for the future of games, I don't know. I don't know if this is really going to end up working out in Microsoft's favor or the gamers' favor.
They've run the numbers, and the irresistible draw of almost 200 games on Game Pass means that Microsoft is making millions per year.
Only millions per year for a company like Microsoft. That's a shining endorsement of Microsoft. Hey guys, this giant corporation that's valued at over $750 billion is making millions a year on Xbox. Sick, that's substantial.
As millions of users refuse to cancel the value they enjoy from Xbox Game Pass. And with the addition of xCloud, a streaming-based service, taking your favorite games outside of the home console means that fanboys need not be concerned with a console count of 40 million.
Yeah, xCloud isn't out yet. So,
all of this will change next generation. Our perception of the word exclusive, even on PlayStation, will be washed away. It's for the better, and it will bring more people to more games. Starting next generation, Xbox Game Pass will be an integral part of the Xbox ecosystem. Traditional game purchases will always be the mainstream way to get games.
Well, you just said sales don't matter. So which one is it?
But with Xbox Game Studios pushing out 4 first-party exclusives per year, Xbox Game Pass will save you half of your money that you may have spent.
4 first-party exclusives a year? That's, for Microsoft, that's kind of optimistic.
Sony's PlayStation Now has expanded to downloadable titles and may see major changes to either emulation or a fully realized streaming service on current server technology to provide PlayStation gamers with more flexibility, access, and consumer-friendly options for the PS5.
Okay, once again, we just turned into an advertisement for something. What does this have to do with reviews and sales numbers being meaningless?
When consumers have more options and more power to play the games they most desire, the reliance on Metacritic or other aggregate review sites will diminish.
Oh, there it is. It's just, it was dumb.
Review scores are part of a branch of consumer smart approach to playing these games that cost millions to make, years of hard work, and amazing talent that provides more entertainment per dollar than any other media.
That's actually completely wrong, and it's actually why I think reviews are more important than ever now. Modern AAA gaming does not have a lot of entertainment per dollar. Modern AAA gaming is getting more and more expensive for less and less content. And I think it's more important than ever that reviewers and journalists and, online personalities and YouTubers and streamers, I think it's really important now more than ever that their opinions get out there to tell us about it. I don't want to support practices like this, and neither do a lot of people. That's why AAA gaming has kind of been in the last few months. Battlefield 5, Fallout 76, Anthem, Crackdown 3, Far Cry New Dawn, Black Ops 4. You see, AAA gaming has been stepping away from the traditional system and being more about, engagement, long-time engagement, for microtransactions, and it's just... And it's hurting the industry. And I want journalists and reviewers to be telling me about this shit, so I know to stay away from it and not give my money to them. This sounds more like a fanboy defending AAA games than it does someone who actually cares about the industry.
Local hardware and consoles and PCs will be a viable mainstream place to play our games for the next 10 to 15 years. When server-based game streaming becomes conventionally established, the gaming industry may be far removed from relying on consoles. Music and movies have strayed from physical-based media to streaming digitally owned with access nearly anywhere. Gaming is following this trend, and having access to your favorite games outside of the traditional console doesn't make your favorite console any less relevant. It actually makes your games you own more prevalent and accessible. This harms the fanboy checklist of what is locked down to your favorite piece of plastic.
Wait, when did we start talking about what? When did this become about fanboys? What fanboys are you even talking to? When did it talk about the subject of the video? What is this?
But for the coming years, PlayStation and Xbox will be centered around a great kit of hardware in their consoles and surrounded by services to expand the access to these games via PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass with xCloud streaming, just to name a few.
Again, xCloud streaming's not out, and I don't think it's gonna perform that well. xCloud and Stadia, I don't think people are really gonna take to that. Those seem more like hardware gimmicks than actual sustainable and desired services, but go on.
Metacritic and OpenCritic are great sites to get a more objective view of what a game's quality is.
Holy shit, then what's the problem with them?
But the best thing to use for Metacritic and OpenCritic is a combination of your peers, your favorite gaming content creators and sites.
You know those are filtered into Metacritic too, right? You haven't acknowledged user scores once this whole video. It's like you have zero faith in the actual gaming public to tell you what you want to hear. Probably because what you want to hear is not what the public thinks.
And combine all this with your own experience in games that you've liked in the past.
The games that I liked in the past are the reason why I don't like games now.
Let the developers, the publishers, and the investors worry about sales of games. As some platforms move to an engagement number, having more players and a healthy ecosystem will make a greater difference on the health and the success of the games that you like to play in the community where your friends are. But most of all, make sure you're championing the most pro-consumer options that these platforms can give you.
Pro-consumer options? Coming from the person who says reviews are meaningless now?
Having more access to the games you play where you want to play them is a good thing.
That's not what... Okay, having access to games is not what pro-consumerism is. Pro-consumerism is holding studios and developers and publishers accountable for trying to take advantage of people. Pro-consumerism is doing things that are going to be good for other consumers. And ignoring reviews and sales just because they don't, like, because they hurt your feelings that they're bad for your favorite games, just saying reviews don't matter, completely not acknowledging what users say about the games that you fucking like for some reason. At no point in this video have you said anything good about Far Cry or Crackdown. You've just saying, oh, I enjoy them. Oh, they're fun. And maybe you do in your other videos, but you're not making any pro-consumer arguments here. Honestly, the fact that you're trying to wrap up this video as being pro-consumer is just pissing me off. Because I don't even think you know what that means. I think it's just a buzzword you heard somewhere.
And we already know that Sony is hard at work at bringing stellar first-party content, and Microsoft is gearing up to do the same for next generation.
And then he goes right into Sony, who are one of the most blatantly anti-consumer companies in the gaming market right now. Holy shit.
This is Colt Eastwood. Thank you for watching. Interesting past couple weeks here on this channel. My review period for Crackdown 3 was so enjoyable, fun.
Yeah, whatever. Comment time. Top comment, your low standard and acceptance of mediocrity is hurting Xbox brand and the community. I feel sorry for the genuine fans that want better quality from Xbox. This feels like an ad for Microsoft or something. Damage control, at the best. Forza gets a great score. Finally, the gaming media breaks its bias and recognizes greatness. Everything else gets a bad score. Scores don't matter. Think for yourself. The media is lying. This whole notion that AAA gaming is just being unfairly criticized. This whole AAA gaming defense force needs to stop. Seriously, I don't know where it came from or why it's so strong or how people are so delusional to not see what's actually happening. So many AAA games are blatantly anti-consumer and trying to take advantage of market trends that with products that are just there to take your money and not give you a good product. Where do you think the market would be if games like Crackdown 3 and Far Cry New Dawn were getting 90s and 80s, like you said? Where do you think that would put the market if Anthem and Crackdown were selling like crazy? Reviews and sales matter because reviews will influence people to buy a game. That's why people get so upset if reviews are disingenuous, because they're influencing people to buy a poor product. And that's why people get so upset about paid reviews, because you're not reviewing the game genuinely. You're just saying what they told you to say, and you're trying to just coax people into buying the game. This AAA gaming defense force needs to stop. You're hurting the industry. Joe from Seattle, out.